The idea of a Zoroastrian business network culminated in the formation of WZCC.
The initial mission was to reignite the entrepreneurial spirit of Zarathustri's worldwide.
We open chapters in various countries.
The local chapter puts all the Zoroastrian entrepreneurs in that area together.
We have a lot of mentors.
I'm a great believer that the role of the WZCC is to educate and to inspire.
There have been a number of courses and programs to open the eyes of younger people as to how they can get into business.
You can participate in World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce meetings, events, seminars around the world.
They can learn from the other members, they can learn from the programs, but even more important, they get to meet with people from the other chapters. It's a great opportunity to expand their business globally.
I remember very vividly 9/11, when the World Trade Center was destroyed, and shortly after that, in October 2001, we participated for the first time in a global automotive exhibition. So there was no way that we could go to America for that exhibition, and we had spent so much money preparing for it. So the networking of the Zoroastrian community led me to my savior, which is Rohinton Rivetna. And Rohinton was so kind enough to help us and assist us in putting up the stall in Cleveland. I don't know what we would have done without him. But this was our first exposure to the World Zoroastrian community. And ever since then, I've been sold on this whole World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce.
There were times in 2009 and 10 when businesses were tough across the global recession. There were various WZCC members who were close to me, who said, Naushad, if your business is struggling, look at us and we will help you. Things worked out and I didn't have to rely on their support, but just that whole aspect that I could obviously rely on my own community to support me.
In 2009, I was approached by Mrs. Meher Besania. Meher was preparing for the World Zoroastrian Congress and she wanted a destination specialist. My association started at a very unique time when we had a lot to do and within strictly restricted resources. But we completed with all collaborative efforts. It was a mega event and it was a very successful one. However, that's the time I realized that what a valuable platform WZCC is and how our members can benefit from that.
For me, it has been a privilege to have led the WZCC here in the UK. Every single event that I attended while I was chair and since is an event where I've met fellow Zoroastrian entrepreneurs, but also where I've always learned.
For entrepreneurs, this is a great ecosystem because there are great mentors, there are great people here.
The idea is networking.
To be able to have the ability to ask, I'd say, industry respected icons that one question which is life-changing.
They give you a good support to whatever your dreams are.
I've benefited a lot because I've gotten to know my community better, more than anything else.
WZCC is very useful in leveraging your business opportunities, and I would encourage you all to join and participate to explore the unlimited benefits provided by the WZCC.
Recently, the scope has expanded where we like to bring professionals into the equation.
I see in WZCC a very powerful concept for Zoroastrians and Parsis of tomorrow. In time to come, my vision, which I briefly described as the CII of the Parsi business community, should see light of day.
So if someone is thinking about joining the WZCC, my only message is don't think, join.
I was present at the founding of the organization in Houston, and I read a long poem there, and I would like to recite the last two stanzas of that poem because they are still relevant. Now Parsis are spread everywhere, and they can choose their land. If you in the diaspora dare, then once again we'll stand in the big league of enterprise, renowned in every place. I know we can attain the prize if we just join the race.
Hello, good evening, and a warm virtual welcome to everybody that's tuned in from all over the globe for the Power Within You seminar with WZCC. Thank you. To start off with, I would like, sorry, am I audible? Great, lovely. So to start off with, I would like to talk about how it's been a year and a half that I've had the privilege of being part of a global community that gives young professionals such as me, and I think about 35 others that have joined in right now, to actually give back to the community in a professional capacity while also personally growing their network. Thank you all for tuning in. This particular topic that we are covering with the WZCC, which is the women's wing that focuses on women entrepreneurship, has this thought of giving all the young professionals out there a platform to actually discuss on what has been one of the most important factors during this unforeseen lockdown. The lockdown has let us all introspect into the actual essentials that we've been missing out, which is giving importance and attention to our own well-being. Most of the times we land up neglecting it because we're so busy focusing on our professional career and we don't actually take time to develop ourselves holistically on a personal level, which is why the We Wing has put together this panel of specialists, entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders in the mental health space, in the fitness space, in life coaching, as well as nutrition, to give you one platform that addresses all your needs for you to grow, not just personally, but professionally, and excel in careers as well. So I'd like to quickly start by introducing our panelists. So the first panelist, who's been a childhood friend, and I'm very happy to see has ventured into an entrepreneurial role, is Aviva Damania, who's completed her master's in mental health from the City University of London. She started her own practice, Mind Essentials, and now is actively featured in numerous publications, radio shows, and press for the amount of hard work that she's put in. Mind Essentials is one such case study that is launched during the lockdown, sometime around May, and even by June has actually started doing physical work in supporting and helping people pan-India, with about a team of 15 other professionals hired from all over, and looks to expand into the university and professional space very soon. Thank you for joining, Aviva. We've got Percy Bharucha, who's our very own fitness star from the Dadar Parsi colony, and now actually taking up colony all over and growing his client base. Percy started off his professional career as a financial analyst with E&Y. Later, he went ahead and got a certificate from the American College of Sports and Medicine as a health and fitness consultant, and now is on board with Peak Performance, which I'm proud to say is again a Zoroastrian venture, which is doing very successfully over the past few years. Further studying, and now what Percy wants to do is further study to pursue a specialization in recuperating cancer patients as well as the diabetic population. Kudos, Percy, good luck and all the best wishes to you. Ankita has joined in with us, who is a life and youth leadership coach from ICF. She started her practice after 5 successful years in the event and hospitality sector, and now has understood the importance of life coaching in the lives of most of us young entrepreneurs and professionals. And she believes it's a profession that will help her coach individuals to become effective leaders by engaging in personal and professional development. Thank you for joining, Ankita. We've got Kripa Jalan, who's an MPH in nutrition from Harvard University, a specialist in sports nutrition from ISSA, a professional trainer in low-carb and ketogenic diets, NN, and I think from amongst all of us on this panel today, a very active and prominent name on social media. And I think Kripa is one such person we really have to look up to and see how she's used the medium of Instagram and social handles to actually connect and interact with the audience during this lockdown, really taking her career leap forwarding. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining in. So I think to begin with the panel, what I will do is start with Aviva. So Aviva, the lockdown has emotionally and mentally tormented everybody. There is job insecurities, business sustenance pressures, fear of having loved ones being infected, especially the elderly that live with most of us at home, and the loneliness of just being cooped up within the confines of your home. How have you personally dealt with it? And professionally, what would you advise entrepreneurs, business owners or professionals in organizations, what they should do working from home so they continue to stay productive and ahead in this race?
Thank you so much, Pearl, for the introduction, first of all. And of course, this has been such a really bad time for everyone around. In my personal experience, there have been new cases of mental health conditions and depression and anxiety due to whatever you just said about like job insecurities and salary cuts and all of that. Now, personally for me, I think because of the years that I've spent in counseling, I actually began counseling in 2014. So I kind of have restructured my mind, I reframe things. So I've kind of tried to look at it in a very positive light. Like you said, I started this venture right now to try and, reach out to as many people as possible. So I've kept myself very busy and I kind of try and make the most of this time. So I think it's not been very hard for me, touch wood. So just helping people. So that's been getting me going. Now, professionally for people, for employees, for businessmen, for anyone who's working, it's especially very hard because you don't know how the business is going to go. I mean, obviously it's changed the way we work. We have to work from home now. So there are lots of differences. But like I mentioned about how I personally deal with it, I think reframing thoughts is extremely important. So when you tell yourself, that when am I going to get this kind of time again? Think about the times when you were at work and you were longing for sort of, being at home, having time for yourself. So sort of just reframing how you think about the situation makes a big difference. Of course, on the professional front, there should be a lot of changes in terms of management style. So for example, if someone has a team, you should be very empathetic and compassionate with the people you're working with, not only so that the team is benefiting, but also it increases your self-worth. It's proven that doing something for someone else will make you eventually feel much better. So that helps a lot, being assertive about boundaries. For example, not pulling in your work into your personal space, making time for yourself. Because what I've seen right now is that the lines are very blurry in terms of work hours. So kind of trying to create that boundary, being assertive about those boundaries is really helpful. Creating lots of checklists, to make sure you're doing all your work on time, but you're also indulging in self-care. So all of that is really important, and that's stuff that I personally follow. And having said that, I think that HRs of companies and managers and, just anyone like leaders should be very empathetic with the employees and should also take care of themselves in order to sustain this. Because of course, everything works from the mind and from the brain. So the only way you're going to be able to work is if you indulge in self-care and take care of your mental and physical health.
Thank you. Thank you, Aviva. I think the part of reframing thoughts is very important and essential at this time. Every cloud has a silver lining, and I think everyone has to just mentally gear themselves into finding that and making the most of this time that they have to kind of work from home while also continuing to be productive. Kripa, we've seen your Instagram flooded with a wave of new home master chefs. We've seen the additional time has allowed everyone to actually become much more mindful about what they're consuming. They are getting creative at the same time to compensate all the restaurants and all the food that they're not being able to order in or go and eat at. At the same time, there are great efforts being put into building immunity. Immunity is something that everyone is most worried about today. And for the first time, versus just catering diets to either bulk up or lose weight or to deal with allergies or control diabetics, I think everyone is looking at immunity building. What would be your top 3 recommendations during this lockdown for people at home? At the same time, there is a constant notion of diets failing. Why do these diets fail? And how do we ensure that everyone that's tuned in today adopt these practices, not just for the lockdown period, but actually are able to sustain it even when they go back into their professional, hectic, busy schedules?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. And I think these are great questions. We're living in unprecedented times right now, once in a 100-year pandemic that's threatening economies, governments, our healthcare systems, and our lives just alike. I think to some extent, everyone is being more intentional about their health, whether it's in terms of nutrition and activity or mental health. But I think this entire sort of unprecedented situation has also created the perfect marketing opportunity for pills, powders, and potions to be sold in the name of immunity. Now, truth be told, Rome wasn't built in a day, neither is our health. So I think my first piece of advice would be we need to stop thinking of our health as something we resort to in cases of emergencies and start treating it like an everyday investment. At the same time, there's this big notion that healthcare is extremely expensive and you need superfoods and you need organic produce flown right from Brazil and you need an expensive gym membership, but it's not that. I think it's essential to do what you can with what you have right now. You may not be able to go to the gym, you may not be able to get the superfoods, but things you can do is sleep for 7 to 9 hours, drink enough water, eat less sugar, eat less processed food, take the stairs instead of the lift. These are small actionable things, and I genuinely believe that what you do every day counts for a lot more than what you do every once in a while. I think my third piece of advice would be to carve out a safe space for yourself to deal with your mental well-being. Because I think, like Aviva mentioned very rightly, is that we're seeing a surge in so many people saying, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, I don't know when this is going to end.
Yeah.
So I think through that safe space, just sort of, whether it's meditation, whether it's a walk in nature, whether it's calling up a loved one, whether it's reading a book, just carving out those 10 to 15 minutes a day for yourself, just for some sort of self-care. With regard to your question about diets, I think the number one reason diets fail is because they're not sustainable in the long term. I'm sure several people here can resonate with this story where you're extremely excited to start a diet, you hop onto the internet, you find the super restrictive one, you're able to follow it for a few days, you reward yourself with a piece of chocolate, the piece of chocolate turns into a bar, and before you know it, you're back to your old eating ways. So I think in this, several people would think, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be thin, I'm never going to be healthy. But the question is, was the goal unrealistic to begin with? So I think a lot of diets fail to account for our humanity, the pancake Sundays with our friends, with our family, the nights out with our friends. So I think letting go of this fearful diet culture is really important. Don't get me wrong, I think diets can be beneficial when you need to manage your blood sugar by next week or you're going to fall really ill, or if you're trying to balance a chronic illness. For most people, it can be really problematic with regard to their emotional health. So I think in terms of nutrition, the biggest takeaway would be just let go and stick to the basics of healthy eating, which is plenty of vegetables, different colored ones to give you different nutrients, moderate amounts of fruit, little to no processed sugar or food. I guess processed food is used for convenience, but what we can do is minimize it. Quality proteins, quality healthy fats, and moderate amounts of whole grains and lentils. So I think just letting go of these food rules and finding your own balance among this is just.
I think the part of emotional health and food being a big factor. If you tell the Parsis to give up their meat consumption, that is definitely going to be an emotional downward spiral.
Absolutely.
But like you said, to substitute it and be mindful of the proteins that you take in, I think is very important at this point in time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I think, and Kripa, the part that you spoke about self-care and the same part that comes up with Aviva's talk, of actually in kind of fusing self-care with the time off to do something that's more than beyond. So I realized for me, I appreciated the time I had off and I actually put it all into something like this venture, of WZCC, where I have a platform of giving back to community and putting it. So in my head, that became my version of my free time and my mode of self-care. So I think, like you correctly said, there are different avenues that people can, approach, whether it's their diet or it's another hobby, to actually take time off and give to themselves during this lockdown period. Another thing that comes back to hobby, I think when we speak to a lot of people and we ask them what is the one thing that they miss the most during the lockdown, I have got a consensus on the answer that everyone misses going to the gym. Something I can't relate to, but I definitely have sympathy with. So I think while going to the gym is one of the things people have really missed, they still maintain and ensure that they manage to fit in a workout and kind of work a schedule around it daily. Percy, since virtual fitness is the new mantra and there is a plethora of content out there, whether it is YouTube or it's Instagram, how has Peak Performance as a company adapted quickly to this new sea change? And what is the next step forward for you personally as well as the team in this fitness space?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Pearl. Thank you for this question. Coming to the first part of your question, right now, all of us are having a sedentary lifestyle by working from home during this pandemic time, and hence there is very less physical activity. I know a lot of people relate going to the gym and just picking up weights. They relate exercise, going to the gym and just picking up heavy weights. But in my opinion, in reality, resistance training is just a small part of the fitness pie. And hence, working out at home and doing your exercise at home can lead to multiple advantages. I would just like to list a few benefits of exercise besides the outer physical appearance that we all think workout really leads to. But it helps us to reduce cholesterol and keeps your heart healthy, keeps our blood sugar and diabetes in control. It lowers stress and helps us to concentrate much better. In short, I can say if exercise could be purchased in a pill, it would be the single most widely prescribed and the most beneficial medicine in the world. Guys, if you have missed this out, I repeat once again, if exercise could be purchased in a pill, it would be the single and the most widely prescribed and the most beneficial medicine in the world. Also, coming to the latter part of your question as to how peak performance has gone virtual.
And adapt. Yeah.
Yeah. To be very honest, Pearl, peak performance has adapted to virtual training from day one of lockdown. Now, due to the increase in the technology and social media, there are a lot of videos available online. We have Instagram videos, Facebook videos, YouTube videos. People go on Instagram Live. And I'm not saying it is bad. Those are really good. But we have to understand that everybody's body type is different. Everybody's capacity is different. A 20-year-old young energetic football player would have a different set of exercise routine, and a 50-year-old businessman might have a different set of exercises because he has a sedentary lifestyle. So now this is where peak performance actually steps in and helps you to customize a program according to the client's needs, your client's goals, and client's capacity. And right now, peak performance has been using the Zoom app for a virtual training, which actually helps us to see what the client is actually doing, whether he's doing the right exercises or not. We try and check the form and technique here and there, and which actually helps us to understand if they're doing it the right way, and by chance, if they're doing it the wrong way, they might injure themselves. So that is very important, I feel. Okay. Also, I'm very proud to announce that by far, we have only grown through referrals happening through the word of mouth. And also, we have expanded our virtual training across 8 countries in the globe. And I'm very proud to be a fitness consultant at
That's
Peak
great.
And the entire health and wellness industry.
I'm glad. So I think that gives a hope to a lot of professionals out there wanting to get into the fitness industry, that I think now no longer is your geographical location and a complete hindrance for you to grow. There are no boundaries left anymore. Business can happen throughout, and it's a scalable model more than anything else, as long as you really use the platforms and the opportunities available to you. So thank you, Percy. And I think a lot of people out here can actually derive inspiration, and those that haven't adapted to the change and moved virtual can actually take some inspiration and make the move now. It's never too late. I, for one, have taken this additional time again to do social service, and at the same time really upskill myself, take time off for hobbies that I wanted to catch up with. On the other hand, what I've realized, it's very difficult to stay focused. Some days it's very difficult to motivate myself. Some days it's very difficult to motivate the team that I'm working with, or in the environment that I'm working at. And it's a constant thing. And with such great amount of uncertainty happening, so one minute we're told that things are relatively opening up, and then you're back to a very strict lockdown with a 2-kilometer radius to actually move about. And now I'm extremely happy because we've just got permission from the government to open up the resort. So as on tomorrow, Della Adventure and Resorts can actually accept people back at the property. But then again, a week down the road, we are again going to be facing problems coming in because that's just the acceptable norm now. At a time like this, leaders and those in leadership roles find it very difficult to keep their teams inspired and motivated. As at the same time, I think employees have a lot of job insecurities. Ankita, what is the impact you have noticed? But more importantly, what are the things you believe entrepreneurs and professionals need to do at this point to cope with what we call the new normal?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that question. Very valid in today's scenario. And also, before I jump into it, thank you for having me and everybody else here today. So you said that, of course, there is a challenge to stay constantly motivated, right? But nobody, and I think everyone on this panel and everyone attending will agree that we're human beings. We cannot be motivated 24/7, 365. So we all have our good days, our productive days. We all have less productive days, not so good days. And the first and foremost thing to do is accept that. That is the normal. And that's not the new normal. That's always been the normal. Now, the impact that we see because everyone is constantly trying to do something productive, and there's this whole thing of chase your hobbies, chase what you want to do, what you haven't been able to do. So everyone's constantly in that fight of wanting to do something, which is actually given a rise to this work from home burnout, because you're trying to manage your work, you're trying to do something extra, you're trying to manage your housework that now we've all been kind of doing, which has also led to like this whole dip in your emotional well-being. And now when we actually think of why is that happening, because our new normal, and there's no definition to this, but I see our new normal as really an increased pace at which things are changing. Things were already changing, but you mentioned, right, that now you don't know if Della is going to, 1 week later, what is going to happen. So of course, that's the new normal. And I'm just going to share 3 important aspects that I feel will help leaders cope with this entire situation and deal with their teams. The first thing being to instill a culture of empathy. And I think Aviva briefly spoke about this initially. We really lack that today. So if you're a leader, if you're leading a team, remember when you start your Zoom call, when you get on a call with someone for a project discussion, just ask them, how are you doing? It's really as simple as that, but your team feels more connected. They feel that, okay, this person cares for me, and at this time I need an anchor. Right? So your team leader, your leader becomes your anchor. So empathy, extremely important. And to add to that, I think weekends are merging into weekdays, days are merging into nights. So I feel as a leader, one needs to be mindful of that and set certain rules, because right now, if everyone is doing 24/7, in the long run, it's not going to work. You'll be giving somebody a week off, which is going to hamper your work. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to be open and be honest with your team members. So keep them constantly updated with what is happening. And sometimes when you yourself don't know what is happening, tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I don't know what is happening, and I'm just updating you with that, because I certainly feel that bad news is better than uncertainty. Right? Otherwise, you make up things in your head, and you go through a trauma. And the third thing, as a leader, I think you need to accept that you don't have all the answers, and it's okay not to have the answers, because the minute you accept that, the baggage that you're carrying on your shoulders will immediately, drop off. And when that happens, as a leader, you can widen your horizon. You can look at a bigger picture and really go to your team and lead with questions. So you are in this pandemic for the first time. You haven't handled it, right? As a leader, no one's handled this.
So go to your team, tell them, okay, this is the situation we are in. Can we think of the best case scenario over here? Can we think of ideas that's going to help us get out of this? And that really will make them feel it'll give them a sense of
like
belonging.
one unit. You handle this like a family, the same way you would discuss it. I completely agree with you, Ankita, because most days I've realized that when I see my dad personally being low, right? So you're seeing the person right at the top feeling absolutely low and emotional on a day, such as when the cyclone hit the property. And I realized that his openness and honesty, like you said, being such a key factor and being vulnerable with your team, let him discuss it. The team gave him strength. So the same way that you said that not everyone is on the same wavelength most times, the days you're motivated, maybe somebody else isn't, and vice versa. So I think the honesty and the vulnerability with your people is very important. Ankita, this is more on a leadership role. We've got a lot of people here who are professionals. So some of them who had just started off in their careers, a lot of young entrepreneurs. So what would your advice be to somebody who doesn't have the control to be honest, who's on the receiving end of things? How do they maneuver around at such a time?
I think effective communication is a two-way road, right? So sometimes maybe they need to stand up and say, okay, can you tell us what is happening? Because right now your leader is carrying is carrying all of you and is carrying so many things going on in his or her mind. So you as a professional, as a team member, like you very rightly mentioned, you can give them strength. So you can ask them questions, you can put out suggestions if you're aware of a situation and say, okay, can I help you here? So they also feel there's a sense of, that teaming. And right now, that is what is the most important, right? And for everybody, whether it's a leader or it's a professional, it's really small wins that is what is important currently. So it makes the leader feel, yes, okay, this is great. Someone's taking initiative. It makes the other person feel empowered by actually helping the leader.
Thank you, Ankita. Yazdi, could I please request you to put on a poll? Since we've reached with the first round with all our panelists, I would love to hear from the audience, since most of you have tuned in now. What is it that you want us to talk more towards? So each of us can cater our conversation to actually suit what you've come to learn from us today. Yazdi, could you please share the poll? It's great. I think everyone can continue with the poll, and I will just introduce my next question. Aviva, there is often a fine line, and this is I think of a little more of a serious and emotional one coming across, that between feeling low with the circumstance, and on the other hand, being in a situation where you're genuinely in need or rather would benefit from professional interference. I think we innocently counsel our friends all the time, and that's what friends and family is for. But at the same time, when does one personally know it's time for a mental health specialist to intervene? At the same time, on the other end, when you as a friend or a family member know that someone requires this kind of professional help, how do you subtly, without offending them, actually put this across?
Yeah, that's a very valid question, because I think very often we confuse a symptom with a disorder. So for example, if I'm feeling depressed because of the current situation, I might just diagnose myself with a depressive disorder. And I think what people often do is that they probably Google the symptoms, and you'd see that, oh, okay, feeling sad is a symptom of depression. Of course, it is a symptom of depression, but there are a number of symptoms which you have to match with. So before I answer your question, I definitely want to tell everyone that before you diagnose yourself and placebo yourself into believing that you have something that you don't, definitely do not go by anything that you see on Google. If it was valid and if it was true, then this profession would not exist. So definitely don't follow that. And of course, in terms of, in terms of deciding whether it's a symptom or it is a disorder, depends on sort of the stimulus, right? So is your response in proportion with the stimulus? So for example, if it's just a rainy day outside and you or someone you know is just feeling very anxious and very depressed purely because it's raining, that's not a proportional response. So then that may be something to worry about. However, it obviously depends on a number of things like hormones, and there are so many things that are determinants of how you feel. So is it long lasting? Is it acute? So you have to keep observing and see if there are patterns in that. So that's how you kind of tell whether there is a difference. But there are some warning signs for any kind of psychological condition. So some of them would be, changes in appetite, a lot of weight gain or weight loss, changes in the sleep pattern, and maybe disconnection from things that you previously found engaging. For example, if you like to work out and you suddenly don't want to do that anymore. And of course, social isolation. I think the situation right now also, that's why what's causing a lot of feelings of depression, if not depression itself, is because you're socially isolated. You don't have that virtual connection or the real connection with anyone, which is why I also suggest, staying connected virtually. So now coming to the second part of your question about kind of conveying to people who may need to seek these kind of services. First of all, I think because India is a very collectivist culture, I think it's just culture for us to kind of suggest things to people, which is not the case abroad. Abroad, if you think that, you have a problem, then you do something. No one can kind of tell you what to do. But having said that, people who have any kind of conditions can be very vulnerable to this because maybe they're not aware. So they're going to probably think that, you're just ridiculing them or this is something to kind of put them down. And B is if they are aware and they are in denial, which is when they're going to completely rebel. So you have to be very sensitive. You need to know who the person you're talking to is. You need to know the person well enough to pass that kind of comment. You need to see whether you are an authority to do so. So for example, you wouldn't tell your acquaintance something like that. But of course, you can tell someone who's close to your acquaintance. So if you know that this is the best friend of your acquaintance, you can tell them that maybe this one needs to, seek something.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of parents and, family, close family, when you want to tell someone, what I would say is a lot of insight building is extremely important because no one is going to seek mental health services unless they have that level of insight that, maybe I do need to seek that kind of help. So kind of building that insight to think, to probably tell the person that, hey, you've been sleeping a lot more than usual or a lot less than usual, or you're eating more or you're eating less. Is everything okay? So keep checking up. And like you said about, having family and friends talking, that makes a big difference all the time. Not per se what we're talking about, but when you show a person that you're there and you can speak to them about something, that eases up a lot of the problem. So talking about it, trying to kind of get insight and also understanding, right? So if you keep hearing the same thing when a person says, I'm feeling disconnected, you can definitely connect them with someone of authority, like parents or friends or, partners. So I think that kind of, sums up what I'm saying.
Great. Thank you, Aviva. I think that makes a lot of sense and really catering our approach person to person. And I think the part of understanding that in India, like you correctly pointed out, we all feel we have this authoritative position of just giving our advice. So especially for something so touching and sensitive, I think we need to be a lot more responsible before saying things and putting things. I feel often thoughts are put into people's heads. So we need to be a lot more careful on that front. Yazdi, thank you for sharing the poll. I was able to see a couple of the results and I'm trying to tweak my questions accordingly as well. At the same time, please feel free to drop in your questions into the comment section. We're all going to read it and we're going to try and answer as many as possible. Kripa, I love the philosophy that you and your company stand by. Live mindfully, feel great, and most importantly, don't lose your mind while you're at it. I think that is the most important line in this entire sentence. Would you please share with us why you came about with it or how you went about putting this together? At the same time, an application of the same for the audience so they have an immediate takeaway from the philosophy that you actually go around talking about so much.
Absolutely. So it already circles back to my adolescence where my well-being almost associated the number on the weighing scale. So quite obviously my mental health fluctuated just like the weighing scale did on the stock market. I mean, I grew up overweight and before I knew it, I went from a happy-go-lucky teenager to someone with a deep-rooted fear of food, to someone whose body became their biggest burden. And the only advice I got at the time from health professionals was eat less, move more, don't weight train because you're a girl. And there was no talk of chronic disease, no talk of physical health, no talk of mental health. And that got me thinking, this can't be right. Because yes, I'm a girl and very proud to be one. I'm very proud to be someone who weight trains. But if I was a gymnast, no health professional would be telling me play basketball. I mean, I was forced to take control of my thoughts and actions on the brink of developing a very serious eating disorder. So I think it was complete self-education, and fast forward to now, I can't recognize where I was back then. But I can also safely say that I've been there and done that. I've seen the repercussions of torturing my body, but I've also seen the beauty of nurturing it and being kind to myself. And that's the main objective behind Burgers to Beast, is that to put my clients back in control of their thoughts and actions and help them consistently practice the habits they choose to adopt in the long run. I genuinely wish for anyone who adopts our philosophy to live whole, eat well, and live mindfully regardless of who they are, what they want, or what their health history is. Because I think that's something we all deserve no matter where we come from.
Thank you, Kripa. Thank you for sharing a story that was very personal to you. And I hope it really inspires a lot of people that have actually heard it, that it's more about being mindful and emotionally satisfied as compared to a weighing scale that decides what your mood is going to be like today. So Ankita and Percy, since WZCC is the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce, we focus a lot on business, professional networking. The two of you have a very interesting story, because Ankita and Percy both started with, so coming to Percy, they both of them started with two very different career options at the onslaught of things. Percy, you worked with EY as an analyst, and Ankita, you worked for 5 years in the hospitality sector. What made you guys switch your career? I would love for you to share some light. We have a lot of people tuning in who are at this onset where they want to make a jump in their career, but there is this constant fear and some level of insecurity of giving up a very cushy job, a very well-to-do job. So Ankita, you were working with the likes of, prominent restaurants in Mumbai, such as The Table. So to give away something like this, to give away an amazing team, to give away this kind of exposure and actually pursue a passion. So, and I would love for you all to start sharing in no particular order. Percy, Ankita, one of you can take over.
Ankita, okay. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll take that first.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Paul. That is a very dear story, of course, and like Kripa also shared, when you face a lot of distress in a certain way, it kind of becomes your journey, and you only realize that later on. So with me, I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to shorten the story as much as possible, but when I left college, I was probably one of the few who had my next 5 years planned on paper, right? So everyone was like, oh, wow, that's great. And then my first job, I realized 6 months into it, I said, okay, my 5 years are completely, don't look like this at all. Now, what do I do? So you go into panic zone. So anyway, I continued doing, I was in the events field first, so I continued doing events because I had experience there, and after some time I took a break. I said, okay, I've always wanted to do something on my own. What is it? I don't know. Took some time off, put my head to it, did a lot of courses, etc. Nothing came out of it. Went back to a job, which was my last job with this really amazing kitchens, events experiential kitchen space in Bombay. And I had a great boss. I was with a great company. I had a great responsibility. Everything was fabulous. But at the end of the event, I would feel relief and I would not feel a sense of satisfaction. So one was kind of lost, but you're like, do I take a risk? But I don't know what to take a risk in, etc., etc. And one fine day, I get a call from an acquaintance then. And she said, listen, this is what you're doing. I've just started my business. Can you help me with some advice with what you do, how you reach out to clients, etc. Just 30 minutes. So I said, absolutely. Went, met her, turned into a 1.5-hour conversation, which was more about why have you started this company? What is your vision? What is your mission? What do you feel? Where do you see yourself, etc., etc. And when I walked out, I was like, this is what I want to do. So the first takeaway is you can put your time, you can put your mind into something, it'll only click when the time is right. Anyway, my next step was I started doing my certification while I was working. And once I finished it, I said, okay, now what? Now do I go full time? So I shared what I wanted to do with tons of people. A lot of them bashed it down. And I'm not a very stubborn person. I go to a few people and I kind of really absorb what everybody has to say. Yeah. But a lot of people, they all bashed my idea down. And I said, I still want to do it. So I'd heard my mentor say one thing, that if you have a burning desire within you to do something, anybody can kill your idea, anybody can bash it down, but you will still know that it's the right decision. So I knew I have to do that. The third thing was that, when should I do it? Like you said, cushy job, should I leave it? And I then decided, I said, okay, I have certain responsibilities, right? There is that fear that you're going to let go of that comfortable salary that you're getting in. There's a fear, what if I fail? And what I did at that point was I questioned myself. I said, am I okay to fail at this? And my answer was yes. What is the worst case scenario? I will go back to a job. Am I going to be fearful of what people will say if I fail and I go back to a job? And I was like, no. If I don't take this step, I will always feel that I didn't do something that I wanted to. And that's when I took this step. And then again, it was like, should I do it now? Should I do it 1 year later? And then I realized, I said, your responsibilities, when you start earning, your responsibilities start then, right? They keep increasing. They're not going to reduce. So the point is, you do it now, and that's when you take off. But if you're constantly fearful of should I or should I not, you're killing your dream slowly. So take that one step is the hardest. After that, everything will fall into place. So that's my story. Put it as short as possible.
Thank you, Ankita. I think that was really nice of you. And I can totally relate. Growing up, I always thought I wanted to be an architect. And it was, instilled into me because that's what I saw growing up. And when it actually came to going about and doing my NATA exam or applying to a college or doing something, I took a step back and realized, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I've convinced myself this is what I've always wanted to do. And then it just later came out to being that, no, I'm really passionate about the family business. So it's not about what the business is doing. I'm passionate about giving back to my own family business and growing it. So I think when you start shifting that mindset and when you tell yourself it's okay that, in my head, I was like, I took science in the 10th grade. Why would I do this to myself? I took technical drawing. I should have just taken economics. Or why did I do physics for the IB? But I think you just have to say it's okay. These are all investments you made on yourself in the past, which are fine. I think you can never be too qualified. You can never be too academically, non-deserving in any professional career. So I think it's just about understanding and accepting it. So I'm very happy that you shared this story with everybody. And I hope people take this. Percy, we'd love to hear your story of this journey.
Quite similar though. So Pearl, to be very honest, I never thought I would start a full-time career in the health and wellness industry. In fact, I was always into sports and fitness throughout my schools and college days. I started working as a part-time fitness coach when I was 20 years old. I think so that was around my last year of graduation. I always remember we were told one thing during my college days, just follow your passion and do what you love the most. Initially, I was very passionate about numbers and the stock market, which actually made me join the finance field. And things were going really well. I studied finance for 5 years. I had a stable job at EY, and I honestly loved what I did every day. But still, I felt something was missing. I just felt I'm not living up to my maximum potential. Now, this is for those who are really hesitant to make a career change. I would share something what I personally did. I actually asked myself a question. What is my true meaning and purpose of my life? What am I actually meant to do on this planet? How can I actually make a difference in this world? It took me some time to find the right answer. But when I found my answer, that my true meaning and purpose of my life is to be around people, help people, serve people, and change people's lives. There was just no turning back. And here I am. Also, this is for the people who want to enter the fitness industry. I feel it's an emerging market, and at present, there are a lot of people who are becoming health conscious, and in turn, increasing the demand for health professionals. To my advice for everybody, if you are passionate, hardworking, and if you really love what you do, guys, if you really love what you do, you will surely see success and you will reach wherever you have to reach. Thank you.
Thank you, Percy. Thank you for sharing it with us. I want to address this next question to the entire panel, and talking about, firstly, Ankita and Percy, thank you so much for telling us that you went from a professional to becoming sort of entrepreneurial. Ankita, doing your own practice mustn't have been easy, and starting out from scratch after having this entire network laid out for you. As Parsis, we're always advocating that Parsis become entrepreneurial like the forefathers we had. And I always want to, speak about it and say that I feel like it's inherent in our genes. So people should do it. And the fact that you've shared your story and said that it's not easy, but it's a step you have to take, I think let's hope everyone derives inspiration from it. The last main important question and a topic that I actually want to cover is stress management. I think stress is one of the most commonly used words, and it is just thrown around like it means nothing anymore. I am stressed. You look stressed. Why do you seem so stressed? I was stressed all of last week. I think it's just an overused word, but that's the sad truth. That is what it is coming down to now. So before I leave the panel open to the audience for a Q&A, I definitely want to address the need for stress management and its impact on our mental health, emotion, physical well-being, personal, professional life, eating habits. So in your own domains, how can everybody resort to kind of keeping the stress under control, and how can they go about improving it?
So I think what I want to address before talking about managing stress, it's about identifying what stress is. So there are different kinds of stress. So one could be distress, which is actually the harmful sort of bad stress. And the other is eustress, which is sort of like for performance. For example, before an exam, when you're really stressed out and then you actually perform better and you work doubly hard, that would be eustress. So very often we kind of confuse the two. And stress is a very normal response to a situation that may seem threatening, right? And stress has a lot of biological changes, like your breathing and your heart rate and things like that. So it has a lot of underlying biological and bodily sensations. And they're also very closely linked with anxiety and depression. Sometimes it's also confused with anxiety because of its bodily sensations. But also stress is not very psychological. So it's quite important to know the difference between eustress and distress, like I mentioned, and also stress and anxiety. So it's very important to kind of understand what is causing it and rational out the situation. So for example, if you're stressed out about something, go back to why you're feeling stressed about it. And very often when you try and think about the reason behind it, then you can actually form a pathway, a solution-based pathway to kind of solving the problem. For example, like we discussed an exam, if a student is very stressed out about an exam. So kind of go back to what can I do now? How can I turn my distress into eustress and make it productive for me in a way that it's actually beneficial? So this is very important. Of course, having said that, it's not easy to sort of do this when you're in a stressed out situation. So in case of that, you should kind of target the bodily sensation. So like I mentioned, the heart rate goes really high. So in that case, you can take a walk, you can indulge in exercise. I'm sure everyone knows that, walking and exercise is very good to kind of manage your stress. So you can do that when you can't ration out and logic out the situation. So that is definitely something I would suggest. And talking to someone is very helpful, especially when you kind of share what you're feeling. And when you get a third person perspective on your problem, the problem seems a lot smaller. So again, going back to the exam example, if a student goes and tells his friend, okay, I'm stressed out about this. And the friend kind of reassures the person who's stressed out that, hey, it's fine, I'm stressed out too. So you don't feel so alone, or you get perspective. So it just becomes a lot easier to manage. And on the whole, I believe in preventive mental health care. So before a stressful situation arises, kind of target it. So you don't go from a 0 to 100. You go from like a 0 to a 10 to a 20. So identify when you're at that 20 or when you're at that 30, and then pull yourself back down. Don't allow yourself to reach a situation where you're full-blown stressed out. So that's what I would say, just a couple of tips. And also in terms of stress or any other thing, for example, depression, anxiety, whatever it may be, I think everyone should create a sort of like a stress tolerance toolkit. So have these things ready. So if you feel that you're a person who gets stressed out, have these things kind of to anchor you down. For example, going for a walk, doing yoga, talking to a friend. So have everything ready and accessible. So as soon as you're kind of provoked with that stimulus, you have something ready for you. Yeah, that's
Thank
all.
you, Aviva.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think moving on to saying about how physically you can actually work on the stress and dwelling down to the root cause of stress, asking the question why, I think is something that we tend to overlook because of the situation we're in. So if that one takeaway for me for sure would be going, sitting, giving some time to yourself and really getting down to why, so you can, carve your path back to a solution. Thank you. Percy, do you want to talk about how people can look at stress, continuing on to the physical aspect that Aviva mentioned?
Yes, very important. I feel stress management is extremely important and vital because living in stress actually leads in depletion of your emotional and physical well-being. And it's very important for everyone to understand to maintain a good balance between your emotional and physical health. I also feel like emotional and physical health might just be there, but it's very important for one to understand there has to be an attitude change. I feel eating a balanced diet and exercising daily will most certainly assist your body for a better growth. But internally, if there is no growth, then mind you, no amount of exercise or a diet, it will help you till a certain extent. But I feel with a shift in your diet and your exercise, you need to have a positive state of mind. Like the pro boxer Muhammad Ali says that I don't count my sit-ups. I only start counting when it actually starts hurting, because those are the ones that count. So I feel we need to have a positive state of mind before we even exercise or do anything. It's very important. That's the main crux of it.
Thank you, Percy. Kripa, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Aviva and Percy both provided some wonderful thoughts. And just picking up from there, as you said, stress is just thrown around so much today that it's become normalized. I mean, it's almost like saying, I'm fine, thank you nowadays. But our brains are very primitive in nature. So essentially, they can't distinguish between the actual physical threat of having a lion in front of you and the constant threat that I'm going to lose my job. Now, like Aviva mentioned, some stress is good. It keeps us productive. It keeps us on our toes. Now, here's what happens biologically when we're stressed is that our stress hormone called cortisol goes up, which in some amounts is essential for our survival. But when we're chronically stressed, rather than being stressed only when we should be, that's when the problem starts. The problem isn't just chronic fatigue. It isn't just sort of hopelessness, feeling low. It isn't just hormonal imbalance. It's so much more. I mean, today, 90% of chronic illnesses, whether it's diabetes, obesity, the metabolic syndrome, hypertension, are created or worsened by stress. That's 90% of chronic illnesses. But at the same time, it's very idealistic of me to sit behind a computer screen and tell 77 people don't stress. It doesn't happen. But I think, like I mentioned before, it's just essential to develop that toolkit for yourself to help you cope with it better, to help you manage it better. Because I think it's essential to realize that everyone handles stress very differently, and committing to taking care of yourself in whatever way you can, in whatever capacity that you can, is the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Thank you. Ankita, a few closing statements on this.
Yes, I'll very quickly share just one thing, since I think the entire panel has shared very valuable points. So this is something that I often do when I'm stressed, and is when your friend is stressed, you tend to give them great advice, right, to overcome it. So when I'm stressed, sometimes I stand in front of the mirror and I give myself advice like a third person. Now that works wonders. So that's one thing you can do. And I think, like everyone's already said, identify why you're stressed. So just to burst a little bubble here, that for everyone viewing, your circumstance does not cause your feelings, how you're feeling. Your stress does not come from your situation. It's your thought So your circumstance triggers your thought, and you have a few seconds to control that thought and change it into a positive one if you like. And that's what triggers your feelings. So very briefly, I just like to share these 2 points.
Thank you so much. And while we still wait for a couple of the questions to come in, I want to close at least my round of questions with you guys with a quick rapid fire. So I just want one word and one reason behind your personal source of inspiration. So who's your inspiration, and a quick line on why? Aviva, do you want to start off?
You kind of took me by surprise there. I'm actually not sure.
Okay, let Percy, you can take over. So this is because the reason is the first person that comes to your mind, and why. Who is your source of inspiration, professionally, personally?
Personally, my main source of inspiration is my guru, Radhanath Swami. I mean, after I read his book, The Journey Home, it changed my mindset. You know, the questions which I was asking myself was from the book, and how he found his path and I found my path. So,
Thank you,
in my reflection, yeah.
I did get a few seconds to think, but no, I did have an instant answer. So my mentor and a family member as well, my uncle, Colonel Jalan, he is a life coach and been a life coach for about 5 years now. Before that, done a lot of work. And he has taught me to question my thoughts constantly. So I would definitely say he is the inspiration, and he's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today.
Thank you. Kripa?
Yeah, so I went to JV Pettit, and I had the privilege of studying under Miss Darsha, who was just a phenomenal lady. And I think definitely she was my inspiration, because she always taught us to stand our own. And there's a popular saying that you can recognize a JBite from anywhere just because she can stand her ground. So I think just something as basic as on Sports Day, we never had a celebrity. We had our own alumni coming back. So just strength within community. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from it.
I think that's a beautiful concept. And I think for her to actually translate that concept to you guys, because as school kids, I don't even think we realize that this is done purposefully. Like, there is a reason that a celebrity is not called, but your school alum is. So I think it's a lovely concept. And I think more power to the lady. More power to all women out there, especially. We are definitely talking on the WZCC platform. And I'm actually very happy that I'm working with a bunch of women who are in the core committee with years of experience and a lot of guidance. So I think we all have someone or the other to look forward to and be grateful to. Aviva, is there something you want to add to finally?
I mean, I waited through everyone saying everything, but I still actually haven't thought of, why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I think not to sound vain, but I think I inspired myself most of the time. So like I said, I started in 2014. And then when I realized that, apart from professionally, like personally, my personality is such to kind of reach out to people and help people. That's what sort of inspired me. So, every client going out and saying that, okay, you really changed my mood. I'm in such a better space now. I'm so much happier. I think that's what just keeps me going. And I'm still going to reflect on this question, because I'm sure I have something somewhere. So it's a good question for me to take back.
You with food for thought after this. For me, I think inspiration comes from home. I've always been inspired by my parents. I'm very inspired by my father professionally and personally. And I think every time I feel that it's been 25 years, I have already learned whatever there is to learn. I am presently surprised by the situation. So I'm glad that my source of inspiration continues to inspire firsthand. And I think now we can leave the floor open to questions from the audience. We've got one coming in from Ms. Dolly Damodiwala, who is a very active member in WZCC. Thank you for this question, Dolly. This one is addressed to Percy. Many industries like entertainment, tourism, and hospitality are going through recessionary trends. What are the emerging opportunities for young enterprises and women who want to work from home and start during the COVID era? So, Percy.
That's a lovely question, because right now people are affected, many industries are affected. I mean, I'm already seeing young women, they are, I mean, if you like baking, you can just bake. People are doing that. You see a whole Parsi colony, it's full of People have started cooking and they are
New
making some
chef.
money out of it. Yeah. Everybody's doing that. So, I mean, just as I mentioned, if you love what you want to do, just do that. And you can start anything from home. Anything you can start from home. So that's very simple. If you love something, you like baking, you can bake. If you like cooking, you can cook. If you want to enter the fitness industry, there are a lot of courses available online. You can start studying and you can become a fitness instructor. There are multiple options for everybody.
Percy, thank you. I think passion and doing and deriving
Yeah,
something out of passion is
absolutely.
very important. But I would definitely like to add a point to that. With so many opportunities out there, just make sure your passion meets a good business model. So either talk to people in this industry, talk to a mentor, maybe somebody who's been here and has a successful run. And at the same time, make sure that everything you do has a longevity to it. So don't look at doing something purely because it's during the lockdown. If it is what you are passionate about, put in some homework into it, do a little bit of research and actually make it a successful business model that you can scale over time. So I think my immediate advice is don't think small, don't think short, and really put your hobbies out there and do something great and amazing. We had another question that came in through the Instagram account. And I would love to share this. Many youngsters in junior positions have lost their jobs or taken pay cuts due to the economic recession. How can they cope with these anxieties and how can they reinvent and reskill themselves? So I think this is a very interesting question and I'm leaving it open to any of you all to answer.
I think the first thing that people that have lost their jobs or that have had salary cuts should kind of remind themselves and find comfort in the fact that they're not alone in this. So if you lost your job because of performance, if you weren't performing, that would be something that you could take on your self-esteem, or that could be something that could make you question your potential. But when it comes to this, you have to remind yourself that you're not alone. There are millions of people going through the same thing and that this is a temporary setback. So very often, because grief and distress is the easier emotion, it's more easy to feel that than to feel content and happy. That takes over, and then you can't ration out like I said you should do. You can't ration that out. So you don't think on that level. So you have to keep reminding yourself that you're not alone, that this is not your fault, and it's a temporary setback. And of course, also reassure yourself by doing things that can help you benefit your career. So for example, if you were removed from your job for whatever reason, try and get feedback about the work that you did in general. So, speak to your reporting manager, get some information on where you should work, what you should work on, and then do courses online. Use this time to kind of develop your personality. So once, jobs are open, you have a stellar profile and everyone's waiting to hire you. So just work on yourself and find your weaknesses.
I think that's a very, very valid point. Kripa, since you come from an institution that everyone idolizes, me personally, when I had to make a career choice, it was either London Business School or Harvard. And even though I didn't pursue it, Harvard is always something that everybody, at least in the business world, always aspires to jump into. Coming from such a great institution that's always given you a great amount of stimulus on learning, and relearning and kind of upgrading your skill set. So the latter half of this question, how can people reinvent or reskill themselves so that in a time like this, they come out much stronger and they come out more prepared?
I think that's a great question. And I'm just going to answer that question as a human being and not as a Harvard grad, because I guess I can speak from a position of privilege when I say, don't worry, you've lost your job, because I don't have to worry where my meals are coming from for the next month or so. So I think just addressing it from a very sensitive manner is that if anyone feels that way, I'm sorry, I can't understand your pain, but I feel for you, because I can't imagine being in a position where I have to worry about how I'm going to feed my kids, how I'm going to put them through school and all of that. These are very real concerns.
Yeah.
But as my colleagues very rightly mentioned, is that it's, I think, as much as you can, try and reframe this positively, try and use it to your best thing, do what you can with what you have right now, whether it's like Aviva mentioned very early, is that for such a long time we focused on, I wish I had more time with my family, I wish I had more time at home. Perhaps just finding, the bright spots in this huge cloud of darkness is probably the best thing that you can do. And perhaps add skills. So I think a personal sort of example is that I've been running Burger Space for 5 years, and there's so many things that I wanted to do because every year we launch at least 3 new verticals. But there's these small sort of gaps in the business model or just the overall output that I haven't fixed. And I keep saying, I'll do it after 3 months. I'll do it when this is over. I'll do it after my exams. So I think these last 3-4 months have given me a chance to fix those small loopholes, which I would have never done, and I would have just carried on. And I think one day I would just have had a pile of 30 problems to fix. So I'm probably grateful for that.
I think that makes sense. Thank you. Ankita, so this is a question that came in through our email blast, and it was addressed to the life coach. So what is the importance of collaborating versus competing with colleagues? The leader as a team player and rather than a dominant personality at work?
Thanks, Paul. Again, I think very relevant, because what happens is when you're leading a team, you need to understand what is the purpose of you leading that team. It is to get great results. It's to get a good outcome. And if you're doing it alone, you will not be able to achieve the heights that a team together can achieve. So teamwork is extremely important. And when you compete, you're creating all the situations that you're going to have to fix at some point, whether I think it's the grapevine in the office, which I feel is a very big challenge in companies. So you have to be the reason to keep them together and not compete. You have to be the reason that others in the team are not competing. So I feel being fair to everybody and treating everybody as equal really helps.
Thank you so much, Ankita. A quick thank you to Mr. Adil Davar, who is the WZCC Global President, that has sent in a very sweet message to us. We definitely want to promote entrepreneurship, and you are absolutely correct. No matter the education and the background that you come with, it's never too late to chase your dreams and become an entrepreneur. So thank you, Adil. We'll wait for a couple of more minutes for another question to come in, or we will wrap up with this session. And I think everybody's points were extremely valid. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody to tune in. I would love to hand over to Mrs. Percy Dabash to give us the vote of thanks. Percy, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Have I unmuted? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Very much.
All right. Thank you. On behalf of WZCC, we and all the participants on this forum, and we had a fantastic session with all the panelists who have all given us really good insights of your individual professions, and there's a lot to take home from it. And I think one would need to re-hear the entire webinar to really grasp what they have been telling us. And I'm so happy that Yasdi Tantra of the WZCC is recording this and will be putting it up. And yep, as he just mentions, it will be coming on within 24 hours. So I think we should go through it all. Thank you all of you all on the panel. And Pearl, thank you for getting such wonderful panelists on the show. And I think we have done very well on this webinar, the WZCC. We've got, I think, the maximum participants, which at one time peaked to about 84.
85.
85, very good. So I think we've done very well. Pearl, congratulations, and thank you all once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Yazdi. Yazdi has shared the link, which I will also make sure we forward it to people. There are a lot of people that have got in touch with me personally to connect with the panelists. You can continue to do so. You can reach out to us on our WZCC Instagram page, and I'll be more than happy to connect you to either Aviva, Percy, Ankita, or Kripa. Thank you so much, guys, for taking out time. And I hope you continue to inspire more people. And I hope the WZCC women, entrepreneurs, and members continue to stay inspired. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Pearl. Thank you.
Thanks, Pearl. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.